Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian. Today, my topic of conversation is going to be getting new players into TTRPGs. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a video that was very heavily influenced on a games master's perspective on how, if you're a games master, how you're going to basically get your game to the table and go and find a group. But in the comments of that video, there was a variety of comments that people said, can you do, I'm trying to find a group. Can you do a video on where I go and find a group and the things that you think I should be doing as a player to make me more attractive to a group or even go and find a group. So I've managed to get down 10 points that I think you should do as a player, that if you are interested in getting into TTRPGs, or you've bought dice, you maybe have a book or two, and you're a fan of the hobby, or if you may have even watched Stranger Things, you go, I really need to get into Dungeons and Dragons. How do I get into this? I've got 10 things that I'm going to get into this video. Before I get into this, just a couple of quick things. I'm on today, I think 13 now, on my Zine Quest coverage on my other channel, which is Dungeons and Dyslexia Tabletop Tales. So that is where I'm just doing a video looking at Zine Quest on Kickstarter. These are small booklets. So please go and support me over there. Go and watch those. I'm finding some really interesting little really sort of indie small publishers and stuff that are really good stuff coming out from there. Costing me a lot of money, so be wary. It's probably going to cost you some money too. But more importantly, I've got a third channel now, which is called Critical Misspell. Juan and I, from our Dartworks, basically every Wednesday we go live, we do a book review and we do a giveaway. So last week we did Land of Eam and actually gave a PDF copy of all three of those books, which was huge. That's a huge amount of value in there. We did Draw Steel a few weeks ago. Pirate Book, so every week we're going to do a different giveaway and review and things like that. So again, I'll put that in the video description, so please come over, support us over there. So yeah, let's get into, you want to get into TTRPGs, and how do I think you should get into it? So point one is, I think really that the first thing you're going to need to do is look at what is it you want to be playing. What sort of game do you want to sort of get into? High fantasy like Dungeons and Dragons, a grimdark game like Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing, science fiction horror, you've watched the Alien or Aliens movies, or you just kind of want to ease in with sort of like an indie game. Or the other thing you need to think about is, how long do you want to be playing for? Do you kind of want to dip in to a casual session? Or are you one of these people that goes, I really want to be playing every single week, and I've heard campaigns are epic. I really want to get into that, because there's a huge difference between something like playing like Old School Essentials, which is a sort of more crunchy system, than something that's maybe lighter like Shadow Dark, or maybe pick something in the middle, sort of Dungeons and Dragons, which is, and it's the one, I think, if you're outside of the hobby, it's probably the game, or at least those words that you will have heard. So just have a think of what sort of things it is you want to be playing. What do you want from the hobby, if that makes sense? So your next choice, so point two, is online or in person. Do you want to sit with a bunch of strangers in a room, get together, or do you want the kind of safety of your home office or whatever room your computer's in, so you can just sit here with, like me, with headphones and a microphone? You don't necessarily have to have your camera on, so it's an easier way to get in. Obviously, the big thing about doing it in person is where you're going to find it. So you're going to be looking local friendly game stores. Most of those will have gaming sessions on nights. There may be, a notice board, or there'll be a Facebook group for it that you're going to want to probably join. Board game cafes always are going to be running, I say always, most of them should be running TTRPG game nights. University clubs, if you're at university, this is easier. If you're not at university, you may not be welcome to just turn up at a university club. I don't know. When we played at a university, we didn't have anyone else, outside of the university there. Workplace groups, or there's a variety of my American friends do churches. There's quite a lot of sort of charity and church-based places that run TTRPGs. So have a look out in your local communities. If you have a local Facebook page for your local town or city, go in there, ask in there as well. Anyone running face-to-face sort of groups and things like that. Because one of the big things with face-to-face playing, it is easier. And it's a lot cheaper to get into initially, because obviously if you want to play online, you're going to need to buy a computer, microphone, headphones, other things you're going to need to go and purchase. But obviously the downside, you're going to have to travel. You might have to pay parking. You're going to have to actually leave your house and meet people in person, which I appreciate could be deeply intimidating. It's going to be slightly harder to schedule because you need to make sure that you get there in plenty of time. But also you're going to have a lot less options depending on where you live or your local town, and work, because, if you have to travel somewhere, that's going to take time. So yeah, that's really the sort of pros and cons, I think, for face-to-face. Online, nice. Online is probably a lot easier to find places. So there's a Discord server. Join my Discord server or any of the other Discord servers out there. We're all running games regularly on them. There are places like virtual tabletops, so Roll20, Foundry, things like that. Go and sign up to those. You don't have to pay. A lot of them will be free, and they'll have like looking for groups, and you can sort of apply on there. Reddit is a very good place to go and find groups, and say like Facebook pages and things like that. You can just jump on, anybody interested, anyone playing online. See, one of the biggest advantage is you've got more options. There are a lot more players that you can find. I'm not necessarily saying there's more people playing online, but if you're in Chicago, for say, you can play with me here in England. Time frames and time zones and stuff will constrain it, but you're not going to travel from Chicago to England to come and do a weekly session with me or a fortnightly session. Fantastic if you want to come, but hopefully that makes sense. You will have more access to, I think, more niche games as well playing online, because if you're going to be playing in a sort of face-to-face group in a sort of cafe, board game cafe, something like that, you're probably going to be into more often not. I think you're going to see things like Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, Pathfinder, things like that. So you're going to probably be sort of getting that iceberg of the larger games, the more popular games initially. It's not a bad place to start. I don't kind of mean that, but obviously if you're looking for a specific group, like you want to play, say, Mothership, that's really what you want to be playing. This might not mean anything to you, but you're going to find it harder face-to-face. You'll probably find a Mothership game because you could just go into Roll20, search for Mothership, and then find people running games for there. Obviously, the other cons is it's harder to read social cues, especially if people don't have cameras on, and people can get very distracted playing online because it doesn't feel very personal at first. It takes a while to get used to. So if you're a quieter or shyer person, you might find it easier, but not all games masters are skilled at bringing everyone into the table, if that makes sense. Okay. So when you are looking at games, so point 3 is read the group listing property. So when you see something like looking for players, don't skimp it. Okay. What are you going to be looking in there? Age range of the players. The tone. Is it a serious game? Or is it going to be chaotic? Is it comedic? The experience level. Are they looking for experienced players? And if it says experienced players only, don't apply for it. If this is your first game, they're not going to appreciate the fact you don't know or understand the rules, and it's going to be very, very difficult to blag it. And you're not going to want that as your first experience. You're going to want a group that is very much open to taking someone inexperienced that's starting again. Look at the session times. If they're running a 6-hour session, which quite frankly I could not do, I start losing about hour and a half to 2 hours in now. I really lose that sort of focal point. That's important. Time zone. You could find a group, like I said, the Evesham Chicago group, and Chicago, I think, is probably 6 hours behind here, which you're going to have to take that into account if you're going online. So yeah, make sure you read it. It might just be something really small. So, just vibes, no prep, let's have a laugh. That might be a really good group. You might land, and it might be the best group that you've ever had. I kind of try and find something with a little bit more detail first. So point 4 sort of follows on from 3. Be honest about your experience. Yeah, do not pretend you know the rules if you don't. You're better off just saying something like, I'm really enthusiastic. I'm a quick learner. I just want to play. Please, don't. I'm always one of these, don't beg, but I'd rather a player come to me going, look, I've just got into the hobby. I just, want to learn it. What game are you running? Is it suitable for me? Because that's the other thing as well. Because if you jump straight into the hobby and we're playing something really, really engaging like Pathfinder, the revised edition, and it's got loads of rules and feats, and we're already at a sixth level character. Someone's going to give you a character sheet, and your head is going to melt, and you're probably going to have one of the worst experiences of your life, and you're just going to walk away. And unless the games masters and the players are incredibly understanding, but if they're expecting someone experienced, you're probably going to fall into a little bit of flack because they're going to expect combats to go round quite quickly. You're going to understand your character, understand rules, and if you're asking questions, you're going to feel like the outsider very, very quickly. So this is why you kind of want to be honest about your level, but also, check the expectations as well coming in. That's quite important. So this is point 5. You're going to want to know what the players want from you and the games master wants from you, but also set it up for yourself. Is there going to be a session 0? So a session 0 before you start, because I think this should go without saying, within reason, you're not going to want to walk in to an existing campaign as a completely green player. It's very, very difficult when the friend group's established, they've been going on for several months, to come in completely in an experience table where they're not sort of starting characters and things like that, okay? Hopefully, with a new game, you're going to get what's called a Session 0. Session 0 is where people just sit down, relax. The games master will explain the game. What are they playing? What are the expectations from the players? What sort of boundaries and rules have we got? What time frames have we got? When is the game starting? When it's ending? What is the attendance policy? So if you can't make it, what sort of notice should you be giving to if you're not going to be able to attend? Who brings snacks? Quite an important thing in a face-to-face game, because that's actually a good way of sort of getting it. But be careful if you are going to bring snacks. Don't bring well, it's up to you. Don't bring sticky buns and things that are just going to like spread all over the character sheet, or ask for the games master's player's guide when you've got jam all over your fingers, or crisps and salt and stuff. Then no one's going to like you if you ruin their role-playing books on your first session. So just kind of think about there's certain things you should ask and sort of talk about. You're not being difficult. You're just being responsible. You're showing willingness to and being keen, and the fact that you have got good communication skills. So 6, I've kind of sort of bled into this from the previous point. If you're nervous, start with a one shot, okay? Because what a one shot is, so there's 3 different sort of play styles. You've got a one shot, you've got a mini campaign, and then you've got an epic campaign. And a one shot is how it sounds. It is played over one evening or one afternoon or one session, and it's got a defined start and an end. You normally won't create a character for a one shot. The games master will give you characters, and you'll get to pick around the table from what you get. It might be random. Mini campaign, or several sessions. It might be anywhere from sort of 2 to sort of 6 to 10 sessions. Okay, that's quite I think, a difficult place to start, because if you sit around the table and there's 3 or 4 players you don't like, you're not going to want to commit to 10 weeks. If it's a one shot and it's a few hours, you can possibly put up with it. If not, just leave. Okay, that's my advice. If you're really not enjoying yourself, you don't have to sit there. Which is why one shots are good. It's characters die in one shots as well, so you're not quite as precious if they die, but you kind of get used to that, the tragedy of role playing, but also, there needs to be an element of danger in it, but it can. How do I word this? Can be fun. Actually losing characters. We run one shots on Dungeons and Dyslexia, the tabletop tales, and quite regularly we will have, we're all friends on there, but we will have player conflict, and but I actually I'm going to say it's all Brit's fault. He will regularly sort of turn on some of the players, and you get, but it doesn't matter as much. If you're 7 weeks into a campaign and the players, this isn't people not liking each other as in individuals. This is character conflict, which happens in a role-playing game. In a one-shot, you don't have to worry about the repercussions quite as bad as if you do in an ongoing campaign. So I just think that's the best place to start. If you're going to buy a car, would you go and, just sit in the car and basically commit to like a day in it. I wouldn't. You might, but you can get into it quite quickly and go, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. Look at buying houses. Same thing. You can walk into a house. You're going to be out of that house within 2 minutes if you don't like it. It's why I think one shots are a very good place just to begin. 7, watch out for red flags. Okay, so now this is not me basically saying that if there's people around there that you don't like, you should make an established group change to you. I always put this back to think about something else, not necessarily TTRPGs, but if you turned up for a soccer team, I've called it soccer because football over here, or American football, whatever sport it is, and you didn't like most of the players there, I'd go and find a new team to play for, because you're not going to change that established group. So that may be your time just to go, actually, let's just go to a different group. Beauty of things about role-playing groups and tables is, the place that you go to, especially if it's a physical place, it might have multiple tables, so you can actually just pick a different group. But things to look out from here is, they might say stuff like, and I have to be careful because I'm not a big believer in, actually establishing a safety tool, so to speak, but I am a big believer in my main rule is don't be a dick. Make sure people are polite to each other, you're civil, you treat people with respect. You don't mock new players. If you're sat around the table and someone's mocking you because you don't know a rule, I wouldn't put up with that. There's no way I'm going to sit with someone mocking me. If they've got overly sexual content and the games master hasn't talked about that being in there, if you're comfortable with it, I don't think the games master should be covering it. But if you're genuinely uncomfortable, you got 3 choices. You either muck in. I'm not saying you should. You get up and walk off, or you tell people that you're not comfortable. Okay, and that is, I think, a big testament to how quickly you can establish whether that group is for you, because it's like a job interview in a way. When people go for job interviews, they're always like, oh, I'm really stressed about whether I get the job. You shouldn't be stressed about whether you get the job. You're interviewing the person interviewing you. You've already got the job because you've got to the job interview. What you're looking at is, do you like the person that you're going to spend the majority of your waking day working with? Now, if you're coming into this hobby, it's exactly the same. You are interviewing the players and the games master, because if you're not comfortable and you're not happy, go somewhere else. Unless you feel that you can make them bend to you, which I think, honestly, you're going to struggle with as the new inexperienced player coming into an established table or established, friendship group, role-playing group, whatever it may be. It's going to be difficult. You're better off at that stage to go, I'm out, and then go and find someone else. There are thousands of other groups, thousands of other tables out there. I appreciate it's a little bit harder if you want to be doing it face-to-face, but I kind of want people's experiences to be good experiences, which is why think of it in that way of, is this where I really want to be? Okay. Number 8, be a good player from day one. What do I mean by that? 1, show up on time. If the game starts at 8 o'clock, be there, ready to play for 8 o'clock. Don't turn up at their house or club at 8 o'clock. Definitely don't turn up at 10 past 8. You are going to fuck off the games master so much if you're the new person and you can't be bothered to turn up on time. Let people know if you can't make it. You've checked that out. But in all honesty, things come up, things do happen. I kind of want all my players to let me know they can't attend at least a day before. Things do happen, and I appreciate that. You might have had a terrible day at work, wherever it may be. And, you have later short notice. But what you got to think about is, you've talked about it earlier, but what, that cancellation process. If the game doesn't go ahead because one person doesn't come out, because that's what they decide, and then you let 5 minutes from the start time, you go, I can't make it. Everyone else is already there. Everyone else is now not doing anything unless someone just happens to have a one shot or something else alongside. You're going to kind of annoy people. Biggest thing I always recommend that you're going to do is learn the basics of your character, learn the basics of some combat basics, and also learn some of the rules. Okay, and that's It sounds difficult. It's not actually that bad, because if you're doing a one shot and you know you're playing Pirate Borg, for argument's sake, there are plenty of videos on YouTube. Just do a little bit of prep. Just, go find it, any channel, how to play Pirate Borg. Google, put that in. Some video will come up and it will give you a run through of the basics of the game. Do you need dice? I would say yes, but in reality, if you're checking up front, do I need to bring my own dice or can I borrow someone else's? Most people around the table are going to have their own dice that you could probably borrow. They're going to have their own special dice they're not going to want you to touch because you might give them bad luck. And if they say that, don't touch their dice. Okay. Some people are just superstitious about it. But yeah, like little things, but also don't expect to dominate the spotlight on the very first meeting and the very first session, because sometimes you'll probably find, because they're more established, they will be talking and they might be a little bit clicky in the way that they talk to one another. But a good group will involve you. A great games master will actually just outright ask you something, what your character is doing. If you get that on your first session and people are actually asking you, fantastic. That is a group that cares about your thoughts and feelings and want to involve you in the group. Keep that games master. I'm not saying they're rare, but I've been in groups where, you turn up for places and the games master just focus on the most vocal person that's out there. So a little bit of prep, make sure you know basics, the rules, say show up on time. That is key. Number 9, don't take rejection personally. So sometimes you're just not going to get picked, especially if it's online. Sometimes, in a group order. Doesn't mean no one likes you. Doesn't mean that, you're bad or a boring person. I did an interview with Rob, the writer of Gods of the Forbidden North, probably a year ago now. And he applied, this is so funny when we was talking about it, he applied to do a Roll20 session, several sessions of the game that he wrote, and he got rejected. Which I think is really amusing, because he hadn't actually done it like, hi, I wrote this game. He'd done it anonymously. I can't say that word. You know what I mean. He hadn't told people what his name was, who he was, and he got rejected. And it was just quite funny. But sometimes the group, they have enough players. You might not have the specific vibe that the group's looking for. It might come down to experience, or they just happen to know someone else personally. But just keep going. Again, like looking for a job. The more sort of tables and stuff you apply for, you will finally get one. Yeah. There will be people out there. There are thousands of tables running at any time. Okay. And my 10th one, and I'm going to put a link back up to my video, is if you can't find a table, make your own. You got the rule book because you've gone and bought it. Because, realistically, if you want to play Pirate Borg, go and buy a copy of Pirate Borg as well. Just make your own. Start them on. Go to the club again. Go on to Roll20 or the Foundry or whatever it may be, and actually look for players. And just do the reverse of everything I've said. From 1 to 9. Make sure you're quite clear in what you're looking for, win your players, and just do it yourself. And don't worry, you don't have to be an expert game master. It comes with experience, and players mostly, if someone's willing to run something, most of the time players will actually come because they realise and appreciate just how much effort and how hard it is to actually be a games master. So those are my 10 points that I think should get new players into this amazing hobby. I say I've been in this for well over 30 years, and I know it's a little bit intimidating and quite scary to the thought of coming into a new group, be online or face to face. But when you find a good group, and when I say a good group, and I don't mean good as in they're good people, a good fit for you, you will have these people for the rest of your life, and you're going to find shared experiences, you're going to have laughs, you will cry occasionally, there's going to be tears, there's going to be upset, there's going to be sort of heartache, but there's going to be, I say, a lot of joy, and you really will enjoy this. And then just go and find different games and try new games. Just keep trying new experiences. Just because You know, people say you should play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not saying you shouldn't. There are thousands of other things out there to go and try. So let me know down in the comments below if you think my hints and tips are a good way in. If you're inexperienced and you're struggling to find a group, by all means, you know, join my Discord. We will find there's plenty of games going on in the Discord. We've got different games from different time zones as well. But ultimately, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.